I have to confess something. I have never seen a Fantastic Four movie. I know. Listen, before you all kill me, I have my reasons, okay? Nobody said they were good reasons, but I have them. So when the first Fantastic Four movie came out, I was not alive. Or no, I'm sorry. I was alive. I was 2 years old, so I was barely alive. And back then, the only interest I had in a superhero was Spider-Man. I'm talking everything I did, lived and breathed was Spider-Man, specifically the Toby Maguire Spider-Man, aka the best Spider-Man. I dressed like him every day. I watched those movies like they were my Bible. Mary Jane Watson, Aunt May, even Norman Osborn. Those were my people, and nobody was getting in between me and my people, especially some fantastic family. I just had absolutely no interest in anything else. And then eventually this franchise came into my life, this much more mature and sophisticated franchise, or so I thought when I was 9 years old, and that was Star Wars. Well, shortly after I became invested in Star Wars, this indie unknown studio called Disney bought the entire thing out for something like $4.2 billion.
You got money. He got money.
And I was excited. I was so excited for new Star Wars movies and projects on the horizon, but I was skeptical because why are you changing things up? I was super invested in this animated show called The Clone Wars, and then they canceled it. So I wanted to see with this new batch of content they were making what the quality would actually be like. Well, luckily for me, just a few years prior, Disney bought out another major franchise, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I ended up watching Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which had just came out in theaters, and that was my first Marvel movie ever. And that really rocked my world. After that, I consumed everything I could. Avengers Age of Ultron was just a year away, so I was spending that time to go back and watch Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, all of the greats before going into this new movie. And let me tell you, at this time, I was not the only one that was so enamored by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, the entire internet discussed these movies like they were the epitome of cinema, which is funny looking back because now it's the complete opposite. And as you may know, back then, Disney was not the only studio releasing Marvel movies. We had the Sony Spider-Man movies, which they still have to this day. And then back then, 20th Century Fox owned things like X-Men, Deadpool, and then of course, the Fantastic Four. Those movies were torn to shreds online. So I just assumed that everyone was right, that the only studio that could make a good superhero movie was Marvel Studios. Well, in 2015, when I was super enamored by Marvel, like I said, 20th Century Fox was releasing a Fantastic Four movie. And that would have been, theoretically, a great jumping on point for me. A way to be introduced to these characters in a new modern retelling. I knew that they were switching things up, so surely I should have watched it, right? I didn't. As a young, impressionable teen, I wanted to be cool, and I wanted to be like everybody else. So when they said that 20th Century Fox couldn't make a good Marvel movie, I believed them, and I refused to watch the old Fantastic Four movies and then this new one as well. I told myself I will just find out who these characters are from a comic book the way God intended, and then I just never did for whatever reason. Well, then in 2020, when the world was falling apart, Marvel Studios announced that they were making a Fantastic Four movie alongside 5 billion other projects, but Fantastic Four was the most important to me. So I thought, cool, okay, I will just wait until that movie comes out, and this will be my introduction to Marvel's first family. I will not watch any other movie. I will not read any other comic book. I want to go into this movie knowing nothing, so I could be the judge of whether or not this was a good introduction to these characters and to this family. Well, for 5 years, I've kept that up. I kept that promise. I don't even know if you could call it a promise, whatever. I have stuck with that. And now we're about 36 hours away from me watching Fantastic Four, and I changed my mind. I feel left out. Everybody is discussing whether or not this movie is going to be the first good Fantastic Four movie. Meanwhile, I don't even know if those other movies are actually bad. Because here's the thing that I've realized, especially with franchise media, people exaggerate. Whenever something is even slightly bad, it's the absolute worst thing to ever happen. And listen, I'm not judging, okay? I'm a Star Wars fan. Whenever they release something, it's like watching 10 consecutive 9/11s, okay? I understand. But I need to know if people are exaggerating or not. I need to know if this movie is going to be better than the others. I want to see what this movie does that the others didn't, and vice versa. So, in the next 40 hours, or however long I said I have until I watch the movie, less than 2 days, I'm going to watch all of them and go into the movie with the knowledge of what those movies consisted of. And then I will let you know if this new one is better. And if not, I will let you know which one I liked the best. And so that I could still answer my question as to whether this movie would be a good introduction to the Fantastic Four for someone who's never heard of them, I'm going to be seeing this movie with my grandma, who has actually never heard of the Fantastic Four.
What do you know about them?
Nothing.
So whether or not she'll get all the information she needs from this movie, we'll find out from her. All right, I got the movie pulled up. It's super late. What time is it? It is 3:42 a.m. on Wednesday, July 23rd. I'm seeing the movie July 24th at 6:30 p.m. It's late. There's only 3 movies. Also, before you click off, this is not just a reaction video. I'm going to intercut with my commentary and different things, and also show some of the highlights of me actually watching this. Anyways, what do I know about the Fantastic Four? I know the main characters. I know the Fantastic family. We have Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic. We have Sue Storm, aka the Invisible Woman. We have Johnny Storm, who is Sue Storm's brother, who is the Human Torch, and he's played by Chris Evans in this movie. I don't know the other actors. And then we have the Thing, which is Ben. I don't know his last name. But hopefully we find out from the movie. That's what I want from this movie. I need a good introduction of these characters, telling me who they are. I want a good family dynamic. I know that they're a family. I know Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman are married or together. And then we have her brother. And then I don't know who the Thing is. Maybe the weird uncle. I don't know. We're going to find out. Oh, and I know they go to space. And then something happens. And then they get fucked up. But that's what I also want. I want a good origin story, a proper origin story for these characters. I bet you it's like Spider-Man or any of these other characters where it's interchangeable as long as you have the main core parts. So hopefully they have the main core parts and don't go off 2-track. But it's the first Fantastic Four movie, so I'm assuming it's a good introduction. Let's watch the fucking movie. I'm excited and I'm ready. Why wasn't the intro like 3 minutes long? I thought this was an early 2000s comic book movie. No, but seriously, I've been so spoiled by the Raimi Spider-Man intros that I was expecting to wait hours before this thing started. I guess we just weren't as lucky this time around. But anyways, I knew from the first 30 seconds of this movie that I was going to be learning an awful lot. Learning things about characters I thought that I had at least a basic understanding of my entire life.
Typical of Victor Von Doom to build a 30
Victor Von Doom, I know who that is. Is Dr. Doom. So Dr. Doom is just a person? I don't know why I thought he was always like metal or something. I mean, I know he wears something. I just didn't know it was a helmet. Like, I thought that was his face. And clearly, I had a lot more to learn than I thought. Thankfully, though, Fantastic Four provides a pretty solid introduction. Whether or not it's comic accurate, I couldn't tell you. But being from the future, this is objectively the best introduction and origin story we're going to get from these characters. So I'm going to roll with it. For the most part, each character's introduction tells you exactly who they were, what their personality was like even before they got their superpowers, which I really appreciated. Oh, and there's Ben. Okay, the captions told me that that's Ben. So they have not changed yet. Haha. It is an origin movie. Okay, that's something else I knew. I knew he was kind of like a womanizer. Is that like a total stranger he was just making out with? Incredible.
I miss you already, Debs.
He has a girlfriend. Is his girlfriend or wife or whatever still gonna love him when he's a rock? My God, imagine if she doesn't.
The lad deserves to enjoy his final hours.
Don't worry, we'll be talking an awful lot about where that ends up going. But before we get to that, I want to talk about kind of a negative that I had from the introduction, kind of for the whole movie as well. And that was that immediately from the first scene with Victor Von Doom and Sue Storm, I knew that it was pretty likely she wasn't going to be used as anything more than a device to create tension between Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom. So are Sue Storm and Mr. Fantastic not together yet? Because that's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
Hey, 2 hearts got busted last time.
So the conflict perhaps is Sue Storm. Oh, they're together! Hopefully Sue Storm serves a purpose outside of that. Spoiler alert, she didn't. And I mean, it was 2005. It wasn't the hardest thing to predict, nor was it unexpected, but it was definitely the start of a pattern throughout the film, and I realized I wasn't going to get to see the full potential of this character. From what I understood about Sue at the time was that even this early on, she was at the very least second in command of the Fantastic Four. In this movie, there's no leadership qualities about her. She's just kind of the hot girl that the main characters, the guys, fight over. It's all very one-dimensional and toes on the border of straight-up sexism. It was still cool to see her get her powers though, and even though the backstory of the entire Fantastic Four is pretty much exactly what I thought it would be, it was still cool to see it explored and actually executed and not just some vague rumblings I read about on twitter.com. Also, from the very jump, they set up Victor Von Doom as this unlikable dick that you just absolutely cannot root for at any point in this entire movie. Uh-oh. Something's beeping. That's never good.
We came here to do a job, so let's do it.
Nope. He's forcing them to still do the job. I told you he was going to do something that jeopardized them and made them become the Fantastic Four. Now the hope is that it just fucks with him too. God damn. Thing's coming right for him.
What are you doing?
Closing the sheets.
You can't just leave them out there.
Oh my God, he's going to try and kill him off?
You can't help them any more than I can.
I told you. I mean, it wasn't hard to guess who's Doctor Doom, and that's something I have to wonder about this film. If I didn't know beforehand that Doctor Doom was a villain, one of the biggest villains of all time, would this movie have done a good job at establishing that? I mean, I know he starts off as a dick, but in hindsight, the character just kind of falls flat. He doesn't create awe or any type of fear in his intro. He just gives off extremely insecure, petty, and lame billionaire, which does work, but not in this case. Like I said, he was a dick from the beginning. He already hates Reed Richards. He was willing to let him die if that meant he completed his mission. And over this whole movie, we see Doctor Doom physically transforming into this metal man, but we don't see him descending into madness. We don't see this kind of character arc where he's learning to get upset, learning to get angry, learning to hate the Fantastic Four. You can compare Doctor Doom to a character like Lex Luthor, at least in this 2005 version of the character. Lex Luthor's hatred for Superman comes from a place of human supremacy, believing that he, above all, knows what's best for humanity, and his hatred for Superman stems from the belief that Superman makes humans weaker. Lex Luthor is jealous of Superman, but his jealousy comes from a place of believing Superman is lesser than, and his obsession comes from an actual belief system that makes him scarier despite being just a guy with influence. Doom's jealousy is explored through Reed simply being smarter, more successful, and because Sue Storm clearly likes him more. This doesn't make him a global threat or even an interesting villain for this movie. It makes for a high school CW drama. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Now everybody's blasted. Oh, she became invisible. He's like morphing. Oh, getting hit by fire. Damn. I mean, I know they're superheroes and all, but they had to start off as some tough motherfuckers to be able to survive that. It is crazy how they all got different powers from the same cloud thing. One aspect I did really like was them not just immediately having the superpowers after the incident. They actually had to discover this, which meant that we got to spend more time with these characters before they got their powers, more time to actually develop who they were beforehand. Especially because the origin mission happens at the very beginning, there was no time to make them feel like any sort of family. They just felt more like coworkers. And I go back and forth on whether this movie did much to change that in the end, but we'll get into that. Far and away, my favorite part of this entire movie probably comes as no surprise. This character's journey is the heart of this film, and I feel like it has to be a universal experience no matter which way you first consume the Fantastic Four story to feel for Ben Grimm. His struggle is without a doubt one of the most interesting aspects of this entire family's origin story, and it solidifies him as my favorite character already. Everybody else still gets to appear as themselves or even look cooler or even become invisible, and yet the character portrayed as the most dependable, giving off this kind of gruffy but gentle dad energy, the one who feels the most human, becomes the one who is treated as anything but. Poor Ben, bruh. He has to like fucking struggle out here. He really got the fucking shit end of the stick. Finding his wife. Oh no. She's gonna be like scared of him.
You're home, baby?
No, wait, I'm scared. I don't want her to be scared of him. He wasn't trying to soft launch or nothing. Oh god. Deb, don't be an asshole. Why are you scared? Just listen to him. Oh god. Oh my god, I thought she was gonna get hit and die. And now they're gonna treat him like a freak. Oh god. This is that question of would you be with your significant other if they turned into a worm to like the extreme. But I feel like he's still like, I don't know. I feel like if you really loved the person, you could still be with him. They're getting their clapping moment. I'm glad. Thank you, because the last 5 minutes of this man's life were the most fucked up ever. Well, 5 minutes in movie time. Oh, and here comes her. Nope. Oh no, she's still like, don't even come near me. So what the fuck? Why is she looking at him like, what the fuck? Are you fucking kidding? What the fuck? No, she actually sucks, dude. I have no sympathy for her. Like, she doesn't even talk to him. She doesn't even know why this happened to him. She's looking at him, shaking her head like it's his fucking fault. Now, I will say, as much as that moment elicits a reaction, it's not because it's good writing that pulls on your emotions. It's because it's over the top ridiculous, unrealistic, and cartoonishly evil. And the idea works, sure, like it makes you feel bad for Ben Grimm, but you can see the potential there to explore something more interesting, something that feels more realistic. Because if his wife's reaction was more realistic instead of being over the top, then imagine how much more you'd feel for Ben Grimm. If this cartoonish version can make you feel that much impact, something that actually explores this dynamic would have gone crazy and made this movie probably a 10 out of 10. Because the idea of Ben Grimm going on this journey to accept himself as the Thing is really, really intriguing. And in this movie, it's just that. It's an idea. You have to do a lot of heavy lifting or filling in the gaps to make that emotional arc work. You kind of have to buy this idea that everyone sees him as a monster, despite him not being hostile or dangerous. You have to buy this idea that his wife would be cold and hostile enough to not even care to ask what happened to him before rudely dropping her engagement ring in the most, rude and unlikable fashion possible. I seriously hate this woman. You also kind of have to buy that in the end everything's okay, that he's accepted himself as the Thing. He finds a new girlfriend, yay, but she's blind. She literally cannot physically see him. And I'm not saying that doesn't work or that a blind love story can't be incredibly cute and charming, but I mean, come on. When the story is about a character struggling with his physical appearance and the resolution is a blind woman loves him, it works, but come on. And in the end, when he eventually does become the Thing again, it's not for any reason other than his family, who are now also all superheroes, needs his help. They're missing 1/4 of their superhero powers and they need help defeating Victor Von Doom. But it's not really a moment of, oh man, like I need to be this. I need to be this character for the world. I'm not a monster. I'm something great. I'm something fantastic. I hope the journey of this movie is he learns to love himself in the end. If they end this movie with him still trying to figure out how to be Ben again,
it's too dangerous for you now. You have to stay here.
What did I do?
now he wants to be the Thing again. He realized. Mostly for his family. I feel like he wants to save his family, which is Now, obviously, this doesn't make the movie a complete miss. As long as you can see what they're trying to do, the movie is, at the very least, entertaining. And I feel like the worst thing one of these comic book movies can do is be boring. The Fantastic Four from 2005 is not that. It's the exact opposite. But watching it does mean you have to do a lot of the heavy lifting for yourself. There's all these ideas, these vague ideas that could be interesting, but they're either resolved way too quickly or explored in the most bare bones, surface level way possible. And it happens so much that it often feels like the writers don't care how or why these conflicts exist, just that they do exist. And as long as they can check off their plot beats instead of actually developing them, then they're good, they're solid. I mean, Reed and Sue, they have relationship problems. Why is that? I couldn't tell you. I don't really know. Something about their personalities conflicting and Reed never getting it, but...
You never got it. And you never will.
Well, what did I say?
Unless it's explained to you in quantum physics.
I just wanted to let you know that I was...
Don't worry though, it doesn't matter. They fought off Dr. Doom in the end, so everything's resolved. No way. That was quick. The team bickers the entire movie and is constantly dealing with internal conflict, having moments where they straight up want to kill each other and clearly need to work up to being a family.
I don't want to be normal.
The whole
I didn't turn into a
paparazzi's
monster.
there and the Fantastic... Whoa! I was about to say, right in front of the cameras and all. Uh-oh. This is not good press for the Fantastic Four. Well, then, do they ever do that? Do they ever show them as a family and actually have them develop? No, but they do fight Dr. Doom in the end together, so everything's resolved. Oh, wow. The Fantastic Four. I feel like that was easy to defeat him. I mean, quite frankly, this was one of the most frustrating aspects of this movie for me. They didn't seem like they could stand being in the same room as each other, let alone being America's #1 family. From the jump, they don't seem like a family at all, more like coworkers, like I said before, and you think, okay, well, at least they could progress into a family, right? Well, they definitely progressed. I just don't know if it was in the right direction. These guys bicker a ton, and obviously conflict makes a good family dynamic, but I feel like conflict, bickering, and not being able to stand each other is the only family dynamic that was ever explored. There were no moments where, like, Johnny and Ben, for example, could share a moment and be like, hey, we're in this together, we're a family despite everything else. Instead, all they could ever do is go back and forth, make fun of each other, play pranks on each other, and it's odd because being there for Ben Grimm, especially a character like Johnny who's been portrayed as this himbo the entire time, showing that he has a soft spot, and being there for Ben Grimm given what he's grappling with and dealing with, losing his wife, being seen as a freak, it would have worked so well, but instead, that's not what we get at all. We get characters like Johnny playing into his misfortune and moments like this.
Means is every team needs a mascot.
Oh my god.
That. What do you call that thing?
That's it.
The thing.
Yeah, you think this is bad? You should have seen him before.
Okay, now I'm gonna go kill him.
And look, I'm not trying to come off as some overly sensitive cynic. I understand that these moments are meant to be played up for laughs and everything else, but I seriously was just not getting family from them as a collective. I felt like Reed and Sue were too fundamentally different, always arguing and butting heads. Obviously, Johnny and Ben are too, and there weren't any real resolutions to this conflict or a feeling like they've learned to put their differences aside. It was genuinely just them teaming up to fight Victor that resolved everything. Then suddenly we have moments of them partying together, which shows that they can stand to be in a room with each other during their free time. The movie just does nothing to progress us from point A to point B. There was a point in this movie where I thought things were about to get really, really interesting. The stakes seemed super high. Dr. Doom seemed like he was actually doing something to create conflict between these characters that was actually meaningful, that they could actually overcome and be the building blocks to them becoming a family.
Life hasn't changed that much for Reed, Sue, or Johnny.
Damn.
Victor was right.
Victor.
No, don't be listening to Victor. Ben, you're my goat. You can't be doing me like this.
Look at me!
Look, Sue, I'm sorry. I can't stay in this freak show. I gotta get back to the real world.
You're calling that the real world?
It made it worse. Oh my god. Oh my god. Wait a second, he's back to normal. Look at his ass.
Painful? You don't know the meaning of the word.
I feel like these characters as a dynamic, they've been brought to like the lowest point possible. So how are they going to grow out of it? All of this is happening all at once, and it felt like it could really turn this story around. I mean, the heroes are depowered, they're split apart, some of them want to go different ways, and though there's no real reason for it, Victor wants unlimited power now, and it's kind of cool to explore that. Sure, it's not a moment where they really need to save the world, they're all just really fighting this personal conflict with Victor Von Doom, but maybe this wasn't about superheroes saving the world. Maybe it was about a family putting aside their differences, putting their minds together, embracing each of their different thought processes and what they brought to the table. Instead, they fought Dr. Doom and then everything was resolved. There was no grand plan. There was no putting together their knowledge. There was nothing. They just defeated him in this grand epic fight. The only cool part was the science and thermodynamic inclusion, but that's really it. These characters went from being split apart to all of a sudden being able to come together in the spur of a moment. Suddenly, Johnny was fine coming back. Reed, who was extremely weak and rubbery and frozen, he just kind of walked it off. And Ben, who lost his powers, well, he could just reverse it. Matter of fact, this change back machine that just fucked up Reed's entire body can actually do whatever you need it to do now, whether it's to gain more power or remove it. It just felt rushed, which was unfortunate because, as I said before, the potential was there. This movie seems to do such a great job at introducing us to these characters' powers and backgrounds. We quickly learn these characters' personality traits. Reed's a scientist, Ben's an astronaut, Johnny's a womanizer and supposedly a scientist, I guess. We learn their powers and what they can do both heroically and in their everyday lives, but they put so much focus on that aspect and not much else. To me, at least, from what I'm seeing here, the most interesting aspect of the Fantastic Four's origins aren't that space trip. It's not even them discovering their powers. It's the fallout. It's understanding their powers. It's coming together and realizing that they have the ability to protect their planet and people. And yet this movie focuses more on the the less interesting aspect of this family. It's also clear that this movie wanted to be like the 2002 Spider-Man movie. You see so many comparisons, including the origin story focus. But what I don't think 20th Century Fox understood about that movie is that it wasn't Peter Parker getting bit by the spider that made that movie so iconic. It wasn't Peter waking up and discovering he didn't need his glasses anymore, or that he suddenly had these abilities that he couldn't have even dreamt of before. It was him coming into that role. It was him dealing with the loss of Uncle Ben, dealing with accepting he was different now. It was learning to juggle a secret identity, or the most obvious, learning that with great power comes great responsibility. I just feel like this movie could have used more of that. More of Ben learning to cope with who he's become. More depth to him and his wife falling out. More of Johnny learning the importance of his powers outside of family and celebrity status. Reed and Sue learning to put their minds together. And more depth to the villain as well. Dr. Doom was another thing that they clearly took inspiration from with Spider-Man, but clearly misunderstood what made the villain of Norman Osborn actually work. Victor left so much to be desired, and it sucked to see him defeated so quickly. However, there was still hope for these characters, including Dr. Doom, to be expanded more, and maybe even in a deeper way. Okay. Oh. I knew something was gonna go on with Dr. Doom. Are they teasing him for the future? Is this like the 2005 equivalent of an end credit scene? Okay, alright. It is day 2 of this fantastic journey watching the Fantastic Four movies. People have now seen the new Fantastic Four movie, and I'm seeing all this stuff online, and I immediately hopped off. I do not want to have my opinion swayed of the new movie. So I don't know if people love it, I don't know if people hate it, but now that it's out, I'm scared. I have anxiety. We've already seen one Fantastic Four movie. It wasn't that great. The more I keep thinking about it, I'm just like, they really didn't do enough to resolve so many plot points in that movie. And it's also just, it just feels very cheesy. The acting, the dialogue, everything that I'm starting to realize over time that, yeah, in the moment it was a fun time, but when you think back of all the different components that made that movie, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the greatest. So today we're watching the sequel, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. I'm excited to see the introduction of the Silver Surfer, obviously, because I know that she's going to be in the new Fantastic Four movie. I saw her in the trailer talking about, I herald your beginning, I herald your end. I know too that that's technically a different Silver Surfer, I believe, or there was some sort of gender bending. I don't care. I know that in this one it's a guy. So I'm interested to see, hopefully this movie acts as a good introduction to the character, the same way that I was looking for an introduction to the Fantastic Four overall. Some other things I'd like to see in this movie, I'd like to see Reed and Sue's marriage relationship. I don't know if they're married yet. I want to see that explored more and their actual dynamic. I'm still questioning what the actual issue was in their relationship. Was it just that Victor Von Doom existed? What was the issue? They had that whole scene and then it was just, I don't know. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I'm not good at watching movies. I don't know. I'd also like to see these characters enjoying their lives, specifically Ben, the Thing. I just feel like there wasn't enough in the last movie to resolve the way he felt. I mean, his horrible wife left him and was terrified of him. He never even got to explain what happened to him. I'm hoping that he gets something in this movie that makes it feel more okay. I know that he was protecting his family in the last movie, but I don't know. I don't feel satisfied enough with that reasoning for why he's suddenly okay with being the Thing and would be willing to go back to the Thing permanently. But anyways, enough yapping. I'm going to watch both Fantastic Four movies today, so I might as well get on with it. I have my coffee, my Coke Zero. I have my Chiefs hat on. I wore it in the video because if I wear it out in public, people think it's a different red hat, so I can't really go out with it. But I can wear it here. All right. Let's get comfortable. Fantastic Four. Is that the moon? Is that... Oh. No, it's a planet being absorbed. That's one way to up the stakes from the jump. I don't think Galactus is in this movie, is he? I don't know much about the Silver Surfer, but I have a feeling that from what I've seen, they kind of go hand in hand. And I know that Galactus is a destroyer of worlds. So, surprise, Galactus is also in this movie, which is great, genuinely, because if nothing else, these two movies were at least a great introduction to a lot of the elements that I would be seeing later on in the first steps. So, thank you for that. From the beginning, this movie's stakes were so much bigger. It went from marriage disputes and upset billionaires fighting over personal conflicts in the last movie to, oh shit, the world is ending here and now. It was finally time for the Fantastic Four to be the world's heroes they so desperately needed. And it was nice because they seemed to have found that balance between conflict within the family and conflict within the world that these superheroes needed to solve. We start off the movie by saying, yeah, the world is going to end, and then immediately jump to their everyday lives, all leading up to the wedding that they're planning for. And in the background, you just know there's this looming threat. The entire world could end in just a matter of like 7 days.
Bizarre anomalies have been occurring all over the world.
Look, it's my goat, and he can actually exist in the airport without people acting like he's a horrible person. Okay, they're getting married this weekend on Saturday.
Unbelievable.
Scientists have ruled out global warming as the cause of the extraordinary climatic events being...
Is Silver Surfer's powers like weather? I thought that his powers were just being silver and flying. It's kind of cool to see a wedding in one of these comic book movies. I feel like weddings are such a big part of comics. Like, there's so many issues of the wedding special. Even with the Star Wars comics I read, so... kind of a cool trope to see explored in an actual movie. Okay, so far, the Silver Surfer just goes around... changing the weather, making it snow. Is that not Dr. Doom's outfit? Oh, okay. Here's Dr. Doom. Is he back? He's back? And yeah, to make the stakes even bigger, Dr. Doom is now a threat again. And so you've got Silver Surfer running around causing weather mayhem in different parts of the world. You've got the threat of a planet killer looming in the background. And then the guy from the last movie with an insane amount of power and personal objections to the marriage between the two main characters of this movie is also out and about, causing mayhem, causing damage, causing chaos. I was so stoked to see how they could handle that. It was just a perfect beginning. Just punch after punch after punch. I was excited to see how it went on, and then as time goes on, they continue planning the wedding without any real knowledge of how big the threat actually is in the background, and then bam, it's time for the wedding. It's time for things to start coming to fruition. And of course, everything started at the wedding, because no wedding of Reed Richards and Sue Storm was ever gonna go as planned. Uh-oh. Oh my god. Not right at the wedding. Oh shit.
Can we talk?
Damn. I like that they showed the Silver Surfer grabbing Johnny, because you can see that they're not going to be able to melt the Silver Surfer and then freeze him. Obviously, that's in reference to how they defeated Doctor Doom the first time, but quite frankly, and not to get too ahead of myself and my thoughts, but that could also apply to how they defeated him the second time as well. But at this point, the movie has been set up perfectly to deal with what's at play here, and all they need to do is follow through. And spoiler alert, they don't. First and foremost, in terms of Doctor Doom, there's really no point in even mentioning him. He was included as a reminder that he was still there and a way to set up sequels that never ended up happening. He did nothing in this movie but wonder who the Silver Surfer was, want to gain more power for some reason, and then got his ass kicked and thrown into water. Just the definition of shoehorned in. Doctor Doom's only real purpose in this movie was to give the Fantastic Four someone that they could physically fight now that the Silver Surfer wasn't an enemy, and since Galactus wasn't anything but a giant cloud. That aspect was really cool, don't get me wrong. I think the Silver Surfer was one of the best parts of this film, and ironically, the only time Sue Storm got to shine within these two movies was in her scenes with the Silver Surfer. Her trying to be understanding and sympathetic despite him being a literal planet killer or an inviter of a planet killer was really cool. It was nice to see kind of how Sue Storm thinks, her mindset here. It was pretty much the only time we got to see that outside of her bickering with Reed Richards. But that's the thing, while this movie does seem to uplift Sue Storm a little bit more, it also gives her one of the worst storylines throughout these two movies. And to talk about that, we'll have to go back to the very beginning of the movie, because that's where the problem stems from.
You know what I think Sue would have a problem with? If somebody told her that you were actually investigating global disturbances and cosmic radiation instead of actually focusing on the wedding.
You're telling me Johnny Storm is blackmailing him to have a bachelor party? He's like, oh, you're saving the world, so get the fuck out. Would Sue Storm really be upset that he's focusing on the wedding rather than focusing on his work of saving the world?
We're concerned that these anomalies might pose a credible threat to our national security.
I just don't have the time.
Okay, see, the world needs his help. Like, I don't know. It's a very, very interesting conflict here. I understand he should be able to have his marriage, he should be able to have his wedding, his personal life, but at the same time, when the world is facing this catastrophe, surely you realize that you're in the position to be one of the saviors of this earth. Like many things in this movie, the conflict, the ideas all start off interesting, and at first you think it's a no-brainer that these characters are going to have to go through an arc together and learn that as some of the only people who can stop these planet-ending threats, they will sometimes have to put saving the world above things like their marriage. This would have also been a great opportunity for Sue Storm to finally step into that leadership role where Reed and Sue could both lead the Fantastic Four, who are now having to face galactic-wide threats, but instead, she's the main one standing in Reed Richards' way. Uh-oh. Not the time. Listen, again, it's not fair that it has to affect their wedding. At the same time, there's no point of a wedding if there is no earth to be wedded on.
Holy matcha.
I
Money.
can't believe you actually brought that thing to our wedding.
I know, but there's a good reason.
It already fucked up the wedding. It was already fucked up. They just put it off. None of this would happen. They would get to have a wedding, a perfectly fine wedding, after they saved the fucking day. Now the whole wedding's fucked.
I'm not mad that you built the sensor. It was the right thing to do.
Oh, great.
But there's more.
I wasn't finished.
God damn, turned him into Flat Stanley.
How could we possibly raise a family like this?
Like, are they just now realizing that they're never going to have a normal family? Why does he feel like things are going to be normal when they do get married? Like, there's things like that where I feel like they're just throwing in random stuff to create conflict, to create interesting dynamics here, even if it doesn't actually make logical sense. And that's exactly what it was. It's not like Sue Storm being upset is outside of the realm of possibilities or unrealistic. It makes total sense. It's that they didn't even try to make her dilemma understandable. Don't put saving the world above the wedding, and now I'm mad that you did, but I'm not mad you built the sensor. We're not going to have normal lives, so I don't know what the problem is. And instead of the writers giving me a good character arc, I'm just arguing with you because I'm not allowed to be anything but a vessel for your storyline, Mr. Reed Richards, Your Highness. And of course, the writer's insane need for conflict between these characters in this family just means that there's even less family moments than the first movie, until of course the end, when the day is saved and they magically solved all their problems that way. It's even present in the little moments, and this next part was a little moment, I'll admit that, but God, did this piss me off.
It looked like a man, but completely covered in silver, and it was flying this like a surfboard type thing. I know that sounds crazy.
Oh, no. Not at all.
Nothing can sound crazy.
Follow the shiny man to Lollipop Land or the Rainbow Junction.
Look, I know what I saw.
It makes zero sense for them to be questioning. You are a man that turned into a rock. Why are you questioning logic of your world? Your family is fire, rubber, and invisible. And you're a fucking rock. Like, why would they not believe him? That doesn't even make sense. This scene right here ties into multiple issues in this movie and kind of collects them all into one. One, like I said, it's just creating conflict for the sake of it. Because in context of this entire storyline across two movies, a silver dude really isn't out of the realm of possibilities here. But this is also what comic book movies did for the longest time, especially in this 2010 to 2010 gap, especially with the 20th Century Fox movies. These movies could have things like silver surfing people, planet-wide catastrophes, and superhumans, but they draw the line at any of that stuff being taken seriously. They want to ground these movies by making fun of their more comic book origins. Look, I may not know the Fantastic Four outside of these movies, but I know for a fact that there's no way they're sitting around in the comics going, oh my God, can you believe the stuff we're facing? It's like we're in a dumb comic book. Look, maybe this isn't even really that bad, and I'm projecting what a lot of other serious toned comic book movies have done in the past onto this, but if you're going to make a movie about the Fantastic Four, then make a movie actually embracing who those characters are and the stories they came from, what made them so iconic to begin with. Just like if you're going to make your movie center around a literal world-ending stakes, have the solution actually feel like those stakes existed all along, not because one of the characters who literally wasn't even a member of the Fantastic Four was just able to ride straight up into the clouded villain and think really hard with the power of their chest and boom, blow him up, and that's the end of Galactus. So he's not even gonna take the surfboard somewhere else? He's just gonna sacrifice himself and kill both of them? I mean, it's noble, but like, all that, and they're not even gonna get the fucking surfboard out of there? Okay. God damn. And that was it. Despite the Silver Surfers sending them on this wild goose chase so that they could send the Silver Surfers board somewhere else, turns out that was never actually needed. Silver Surfer had the power all along to defeat this world-ending planet killer, and he has the power to also save Sue Storm, who, by the way, fucking dies in this movie. And characters are hardly even sad about it, let alone is it seen as any type of obstacle, because Silver Surfer was apparently just this powerful all along. So what was the stakes even for? What was this entire movie even for? It became abundantly clear that this movie just collapsed under its own weight. I mean, what I saw as a promising setup was actually way too complex for the writers. It was way too complex for what this universe could actually handle. And quite frankly, I should have seen it coming. I should have seen the cracks within the movie, and seeing how they set up all this, there was no way that they were going to be able to handle all that. I mean, this movie, the writers, these characters don't even take themselves seriously. So why would they take the world-ending stakes seriously as well? It was my fault, frankly, for being invested. And in the end, these characters don't get to become this world's heroes. They don't really get to become the Fantastic Four. They barely even played a part in defeating the main villain. Oh, and of course, how could you forget about the subplot with Johnny getting everyone's powers? Well, the answer is, of course, everyone could forget. It was just another thing that they could have done something with, but ended up being incredibly shallow. I appreciate that Johnny got to have this subplot that gave him something more to do than being a hot-headed himbo. But in the end, the rest of the crew just used this as a way to blame him for fucking up everything all the time, even when it wasn't his fault. And this was all done in the name of the writers trying to create conflict. I think it's clear at this point that this movie struck a nerve. Maybe I'm overreacting, I don't know, but I really did not like it. That by the time the credits started rolling, I was so confused. I was like, there's no way that a serious person, let alone a serious filmmaker, actually made this movie and thought, hey, that'll hit. Put that in theaters. I had to look it up. I had to look up how and why this movie happened. And what I found explained a lot. All right. That is the end of that Fantastic Four crew. Yeah, no end credit scene. I gotta look this up. Was there a third movie that got canceled? Or yes, there was supposed to be a Fantastic Four 3, but it was ultimately canceled. Box office disappointment. Rise of the Silver Surfer made money, but it didn't do that well. Super negative reception. Because audiences felt like their movies were too safe, childish, cheesy, and back then in 2007 they wanted more stuff like the Dark Knight trilogy, which also came out the same year. Wow. And cast contracts, scheduling conflicts. By 2009 they were already looking to reboot the franchise. That's crazy because they didn't even reboot it until 2015. There was also a Silver Surfer spin-off from this movie too. Wow. And it was supposed to be written by the same guy that wrote Thor. Interesting. Well, that sucks. That's sad to see, but at the same time, can you blame them for not wanting? Can you blame audiences for not wanting to see a third one of this universe? I mean, I'm sorry, but yeah, at this point you get the gist. But little did I know in this moment that from here, things were only going to get worse. All right, for fantastic time, for Fantastic Four. Now, this movie is the one that I have heard the most shit about. Now, exactly what that shit is, I could not tell you, but I know that people do not like this movie. I'm pretty sure that the director, completely disowned the movie. I don't know. I know that there was a lot of issues behind the scenes, which seems to be a reoccurring theme in these Fantastic Four movies. Just from the looks of it, when I clicked on it on Disney Plus, it seems a lot darker in theme. I don't know what you would compare it to. It almost seems like apocalyptic. It's definitely different from the very cheesy, almost cringe-worthy take on the Fantastic Four that the first two movies were. So I'm interested to see. I know this is a reboot. It took 8 years for it to come out? So I don't know. I learned from the last one that they were looking to reboot the Fantastic Four from 2009. So is this one of those cases where the movie went through a bunch of developmental hell behind the scenes and I'm just about to see an abomination? Or is this going to be a case of me actually liking bad movies again? Because there's quite a few movies that have behind the scenes issues like this that I quite enjoyed. I think sometimes seeing a way that a director kind of navigates studio interference, or something like Star Wars where there's a bunch of stories and a whole canon going on, it's interesting to see a way that a filmmaker, a writer, a director overcomes those obstacles. Sometimes it really serves the story and sometimes it really does not. So I'm interested to see. But first, I want a Coke Zero. Seriously, not even joking. It's currently 5:28 a.m. So I'm 13 hours away until I see the new Fantastic Four movie. I need to watch this and then get to bed so that I'm not sleeping through the new one. Got my Coke Zero. It's time for some fantastic more.
Ever since I was 3, I wanted to play quarterback for the New York Giants, like my
The
personal
Giants?
hero, Eli Manning.
Eli Manning? So this is a much more modern take. This movie probably took place in 2015. Oh, how observant I am. You know, it's funny that up until now, each one of these Fantastic Four movies go for a more modern take, literally taking place within the same year they were released in. Not that I hate modern takes or this really docks any of the movies for me, but it's wild that nobody thought to embrace a 60s aesthetic or even just an older aesthetic until now. Also, so sorry, the movie footage for this one is gonna look like it also came from the 60s because the file got corrupted. Just bear with me. It's the thing. You know, they probably explained this in the first movie. I didn't pay attention, but I don't know how they met, how they became friends.
Hey, clobbering time. Come here. What'd you think? You think you'd talk to me like that? Huh? You think you could talk to me
Hilarious.
like that?
Clobbering time. His dad's beating his ass or whatever. Or is that his brother? They're taking this story way back. Now, was Reed Richards as a kid doing this in the other Fantastic Four universe, do you guys think? If I'm being completely honest, though, I didn't hate this, at least at the start. I mean, I was intrigued by what they could do. I mean, it didn't make sense that middle schoolers could literally figure out the science behind teleportation, but I'm watching a fucking comic book movie, okay? Unlike these writers, I'm willing to throw out a little logic with a comic book movie. If nothing else, this movie is trying something different. And can I really knock a filmmaker for trying something different? It made it clear from the jump what tone it was trying to set. I mean, even the scenes with them as children had the same cynical, emotionally distant, bleak tone as something like an indie psychological thriller. And yeah, this may totally pivot from the roots of the Fantastic Four. I mean, it completely pivots from the almost cringe-worthy take on these characters that we got beforehand. And I know I complained about the last two movies not really embracing the comic book origins that it comes from and more making fun of them, but this feels different. It doesn't feel like it's having an identity crisis or like it's relying on the comics when it's convenient and then making fun of them when it's not. It feels like someone actually had a sense of vision. Like they actually saw these characters and thought, hey, maybe that's not how they were portrayed in the comics before, but if we change things up, there might actually be an interesting story here, something that we could work with. And that's exactly what this movie was at the start. Is that Sue Storm? It sure is. Mm-hmm. Did Captain say Dr. Storm?
That's why we can't bring them
So is
back
that
from the other dimension.
Sue and Johnny's dad, or...
We've gone so far as to send matter to another dimension, but we haven't been able to maintain a field long enough to bring that matter back. You just did.
Well, he may have been disqualified, but
you're serious?
doors have opened.
So you like music? Is that kind of like your thing? Pattern recognition.
At least they made Sue, like, smart and actually studying something in this movie. Look, I don't know if it was just because of all the hate I've seen for this movie, so I was rooting for an underdog and had an optimistic outlook on things, but I really saw something in what this movie was setting up. I mean, it's exactly how I felt about the previous two movies at the start as well. It's like they spend all this time gathering these weapons, these characters that they have that are essentially weapons that could do so much. They could do so much damage, aka make a really good story, and then they just never learn how to do anything with those weapons. They never use them, they never train with them. It's just like, we have the characters here and that's all we need.
New energy, resources, it's a whole new world.
Which can help save this one.
I will say, so far, there's nothing super egregious that makes it a bad movie.
Working together with a level of commitment and collaboration, putting aside petty squabbles if you want to fix what my generation broke.
So the Fantastic Four's goal in this movie is to fix the damage that boomers have caused to the world. It does get points for being politically relevant. Always makes a good story. As intrigued as I was, though, I'm not stupid, okay? The cracks were definitely starting to show even before they went into Planet Zero and obtained their powers. I mean, this version of Sue Storm, who is in the background, quiet, almost like she's been horribly traumatized by something, makes me miss Jessica Alba's Sue Storm. I mean, what the hell was this? While the rest of the crew is attempting to have actual bonding sequences, she's out here doing God knows what. I can't even remember. And it doesn't help when this character character is not only going to get to do nothing again, but they're also trying to rehash this feud between Victor and Reed over Sue. The key word there is try, but I mean, the seeds were there, and if Doctor Doom actually got to be a bigger part of this movie or actually established, they definitely would have drawn on that later on in the movie. Oh my god, are they really about to do this again? Are they about to fight over Sue Storm again? Is their entire conflict really going to be over our girl?
Okay. You're being unprofessional. You're supposed to be down here working.
I mean, they literally took Sue Storm out of the origin mission. She just wasn't there. She just gets secondhand energy blasts from this alternate dimension world. And that's just the icing on the cake with Sue Storm as a character. Well, now she's invisible. Interesting. As for the origin mission itself, the backstory, besides Sue Storm not being in it, it was all right. I mean, to me, it felt more like an origin story for Doctor Doom up until the very last second, where Ben suddenly gets pelted by a shit ton of rocks, which makes him the Rock thing. But speaking of Doctor Doom, from the start, I just wasn't a fan of this Zack Snyder's Lex Luthor ass Doctor Doom. He wasn't intimidating, at least for what they were trying to set him up to be, which was a literal world-ending threat. It was just another half-assed attempt at whatever this character is even supposed to be. I don't even know at this point. If I start reading Fantastic Four comics, it's going to be because of Doctor Doom. I mean, I seriously want to know more about this character, and knowing that they're going to probably bastardize him in Avengers Doomsday, I just need to consume this character properly. So if you have some suggestions for some good Doctor Doom stories, whether it's animated, a comic, whatever, put it in the comments below. I need to know more, because I can tell you there's absolutely no way that this villain has become as iconic as he has by being an insecure, spoiled tech bro whose only motives are to one-up Reed Richards and marry Sue Storm. That's Victor Von Doom? Victor is like fucking incel who doesn't shower?
This world must die so that mine may live. So be it.
So you're telling me in the last year, he's now decided that that was his world. I mean, it's not like that's impossible, but I just feel like if they wanted that to be effective, they could have had something showing a bit more. Also, it's funny now that across two movies, one of the Fantastic Four's biggest hurdles to overcome is that their higher-ups were like, well, we know Victor Von Doom has his past and all, but we need him for this mission and we're going to bring him back, and that's that. And look, I can't be too hard on Doctor Doom himself, because I think Doctor Doom stems from one of the biggest issues of this movie. Matter of fact, the biggest issue of this movie, and that's the pacing. For starters, they broke my golden rule that I told you guys about at the beginning, the literal cardinal sin that makes these movies an instant flop for me. This movie was boring as shit. And in the beginning of the film, you think, okay, it's going to be one of those slow burns. You're going to spend a lot of time with these characters. And then in the end, it's all going to feel super satisfying. It's all going to come together and it's all going to be worth it. But of course, that wasn't the case. Of course, all those boring moments amounted to absolutely nothing. And there's quite a bit that amount to absolutely nothing. I mean, another slow, boring moment was the government-sponsored experiments. I mean, there's moments where you're like, ugh, that's weird, but that's because they're trying to be edgy. They're trying to do these things to be edgy. I mean, I feel like anybody who consumes a Fantastic Four origin story is going to have in the back of their mind, oh God, like that's freaky. That is inherently terrifying to be just a regular dude that goes to space and then gets turned into a rock or a fucking rubber band. But the movie doesn't do much with that, and it's also boring as shit. Like, it drags on for so long. It lasted forever. They stretched his ass out. This boy Johnny's just permanently on fire.
What happened to me?
I don't know, but I'm gonna figure this out.
I just can't imagine waking up and then you're a fucking giant rock man. But eventually, when the filmmakers are done being edgelords, Reed escapes what is essentially the prison that they're being kept in, and then the movie skips a year and shows that Sue, Johnny, and Ben have been weaponized by the government for covert missions. During this time, Reed is on the run, presumably trying to find a cure for what's happened by building a new version of the portal space shuttle thing, which obviously leaves characters like Ben feeling betrayed, especially when the government is probably speaking in his ear saying, fuck that guy. So clearly at this point, point, the movie has a lot left to tackle. And mind you, at this point, the only established group is a government-sanctioned Fantastic Four, or Terrific 3, or actually Tyrannous 3, because it's with the government. And it's clearly not where the movie would end up going. I mean, if it stayed consistent with its messaging, an actual group needs to be established separate from the government. I mean, this movie clearly wasn't siding with the government by any means. But not only do they need to establish a group, they need to get Reed back. He needs to come back, convince everyone that he's still chill, and then become the leader of the Fantastic Four. And they also need to break off from the government and resolve whether or not there's this cure. You know, the characters need to go through their accepting storyline. Oh, and how could I forget? They still need to set up their antagonist to actually be an antagonist. I mean, we haven't even gone back to Planet Zero at this point, let alone mention anything from it. I mean, the last we saw of Victor Von Doom, he got left at Planet Zero, and then a year jumps, and so much can happen with a year, especially when you're in this like radioactive green energy planet dimension thing. So at this point, I'm thinking, god damn, they have a lot to set up. I mean, this was the longest 30 minutes of my life. So then I check the timestamp and see how far I'm actually into the movie, and well, okay, so looking, there's 37 minutes left in this movie, and I'm assuming the credits are at least 7 minutes long. I feel like nothing has happened so far. How are they gonna set up a conflict with their villain, Dr. Doom, or is the villain Reed Richards? Well, I'm so confused. 30 minutes left in this movie, and there isn't even a proper antagonist developed, and ironically, they don't even go back and visit Planet Zero until there's 20 minutes left, and then Victor isn't even brought into the mix until there's 15 minutes left. At this point, it's just Rush City. It's Rush Central. I mean, Reed fights Ben, they bring him in, they start working together with him, he somehow becomes the leader of the entire mission. They send out other scientists to Planet Zero, bring Dr. Doom back to Earth, and then Doom immediately kills literally everyone except the Fantastic Four, including Sue and Johnny's dad, which is very much skipped over very quickly. Then Dr. Doom returns back to Planet Zero, and the literal Earth starts to fucking cave in on itself. I mean, the world is about to end right now, right here in the last 10 minutes of this movie. So then the Fantastic Four, if you can even call them that at that point, follows him to Planet Zero, and then they have this big generic superhero fight where they literally do nothing special. They just beat his ass. Now he's torn to shreds. Once again, they just beat the most undefeatable man in the most convenient way possible. Like, there was nothing elaborate about it. There was nothing cool about it. They just fought him. They just used their powers. There was no moment of coming together or anything like that. And then after they defeat the villain that was literally about to end their world in the most convenient way possible, the portal closes, and then that's the movie. The world is fine. There's no real critique of anything. There's no critique of turning these guys into government arsenal unless you count Dr. Doom killing all of them, but that's not really a critique. I mean, this movie was barely even a movie. I mean, it had its moments, especially at the start, but that was the most embarrassing way to wrap things up. It's like the movie was meant to be 4 hours long, and then the last 2 hours were condensed into 20 minutes. I mean, the amount that happens in the first 90% of this movie compared to the last 10% is astonishing. I'd be willing to bet that most of the movie happens in the last 10% of the runtime. And of course, there's no family element. There's no point in even addressing that. I mean, there's no overcoming any obstacles around them. They just conveniently beat the villain, and that's that. I thought that the other two were bad in the way that they ended off their movies and resolved all the world-ending stakes that they set up. No, literally this movie treats ending the world like a minor inconvenience. That's it. The movie's over. They dropped the ball horribly.
It's fantastic.
I'm dead. Here's the meme. Say that again. Taking one last good look at the view of my city before I go out there and see Galactus destroy the city of, I'd assume it takes place in New York, the new one. I don't know. Anyways, about an hour and a half away from seeing it. I live super close to the movie theater, so I'm gonna be going in just a second. I wish I had I know I have Marvel shirts, but I obviously don't have a Fantastic Four shirt. I have an X-Men shirt, I can't find it, but that's besides the point. I've been thinking a lot about Fantastic Four and why those movies, the last 3 movies I just watched, didn't work, and whether or not this movie could work. I've been doing some research because I'm so invested in the behind the scenes of things, and you know what? Let me get to my computer. It's best to have this conversation there. Okay, perfect. This feels so much better. I don't have a lot of time to say this, but as we know in Hollywood today, and quite honestly, the entire world, the biggest driving factor for pretty much everything is making money, especially in the film industry, especially in these big franchises like Star Wars or Marvel. Even to this day, we see the way that the business side of things interferes with the creative side of things. Their number one goal is to turn a profit. There's so many stocks and shareholders involved. So a lot of people that are involved in the production of these movies are people that are looking to turn a profit for their company, to make their shareholders the happiest they can be and get the biggest value out of these movies. Some of the way that these experts interfere is looking at other movies and seeing what works there. For example, looking at what was popular in comic book movies in the early 2000s. We had the Toby Maguire Spider-Man movies, we had the Nolan trilogy of The Dark Knight, the Batman trilogy, and they knew that those projects worked. So if they could do the same thing with the properties that they had the rights to, they would do everything in their power to do so. So that's exactly what they did with the first 2 Fantastic Four movies. They weren't trying to capture the heart of Fantastic Four. They weren't trying to capture the family dynamic. They were trying to capture Spider-Man and emulate exactly what Spider-Man did to touch the audience in the same way so that they would spend their money in the same way. Another way the business side of things interferes is the whole rights dispute. Marvel has a whole history of rights disputes. They went bankrupt in the 90s and basically sold their characters off to a bunch of different studios. So Sony got Spider-Man, 20th Century Fox got the X-Men and Fantastic Four. But the thing is that when they signed these contracts and got these deals to get these characters, there was a clause that they had to make these movies in order to retain the rights. And if they didn't in a certain amount of time, they would lose the rights to these characters and they would go back to Marvel. The first Fantastic Four movie that was ever made was never actually released. This movie was made in the 90s. It's leaked online by now, but they never actually released it. They had $1 million budget. Everybody worked on it as if it was going to be released, and nobody that worked on it knew that it wasn't going to be released, but they had to make a Fantastic Four movie if they wanted to keep the rights of Fantastic Four. Despite not even being able to properly adapt these characters in the 90s and with $1 million budget, they still had to make the movie no matter what. Well, time passes and we get into the early 2000s and it's time to release another Fantastic Four movie if they want to retain the rights, and that's where we got the 2005 Fantastic Four movie. Now, this time around, they did actually plan to release the movie in theaters, and that's obviously what we got, but that was their main goal all along. And when you factor in the whole trying to copy Spider-Man aspect of things, it makes the movie feel heartless. And it shows you that they weren't trying to encapture what made the Fantastic Four so great to begin with. They were just trying to do something different using the name of Fantastic Four. Now, from what I know, those first 2 Fantastic Four movies didn't deviate too much from the original source material, but there's so many things that I've already talked about within this video, like the way that the family conflicts are written. They drum up all this conflict, sometimes even doing things that are absolutely illogical within this universe to create conflict between these characters, but they don't do much to actually resolve it. All they do is fight a big battle and then they're fine and come together. From what I understand, the original Fantastic Four runs did have conflict and family drama. It was the whole draw of these characters. They weren't just fighting big, huge battles, but they were also fighting interpersonal conflicts, marriages, and things like that. But at the end of the day, they still came together. At the end of the day, they were still shown as a family. 20th Century Fox wasn't worried about that. They were just worried about having a good enough drama and entertainment to get people's butts into seats. That's all that really mattered with those first two Fantastic Four movies. The 2015 reboot of Fantastic Four doesn't really need much explanation for what went wrong there. They obviously deviated so much from the original source material and were trying to copy that Nolan trilogy, the darkness that was so popular in comic book movies at this time. But the thing is that the suits weren't even confident in that vision and what they were allowing Josh Trank to do, because behind the scenes, from what I've researched, they still made all these changes behind the scenes to make it less dark, to make it more blockbustery. And I feel like that's where all these random moments of humor come in, like the ending scene with Fantastic. Say that again? And of course that movie doesn't even try to show the family aspect. They try to drum up some sadness there with Dr. Storm dying, but it happens so quick, it happens out of nowhere. Victor Von Doom's goals and motives are so confusing that it doesn't really matter, you don't really care, and these characters like Sue Storm are so stoic that it's like, who cares? I don't feel bad for her because I feel like she's fine. All of this to say that it's clear that mandates and studio behind the scenes interference has absolutely ruined these movies, and it's ruined their ability to see what actually made the Fantastic Four popular to begin with. If they focused on the family dynamics and going on an adventure with these characters that showed interpersonal conflict while also dealing with being heroes in a way that actually feels satisfying in the end, a Fantastic Four movie should be one of the most popular movies of all time. And it's interesting because when you look at the origins of the Fantastic Four, when Stan Lee and Jack Kirby originally made those comics, Stan Lee was fed up with what comics had become. He felt like they had just become a rehash of each other, that there was nothing new being brought to the table, and he was about to retire. And his wife basically told him, well, if you're going to be done, shouldn't you make a story that you want to make, something that feels personal to you, something that you don't have to worry about, oh, is the audience going to like this? Is this going to sell well? Just worry about what you want to make, and that's what he did, and that's where Fantastic Four came from. So when you have this group of characters and this comic universe that's whole point was to create something new and refreshing, trying to emulate other movies or trying to fit into a box of what makes the most money, it's pretty much just doing the exact opposite of what a Fantastic Four movie should do. Now, as for this new movie, like I said, in order for it to work, they have to capture that family dynamic in a way that makes them feel like a family but still has the conflict there. From what we've seen so far in the trailers and stuff, we know that they're going to have a baby. We know that they're going to be dealing with having a baby versus trying to save the world. I'm pretty sure there was a clip of Galactus wanting the baby, like that was his bargain and the price was too high. And when you see things like the trailer, you see that they have family dinner, you see that there's going to be a baby involved, so it does feel like they're going to focus in on the actual family dynamic of the Fantastic Four. My worry is that this is the last movie before Avengers Doomsday, so I worry that this movie is going to have to focus too much on trying to set up an Avengers-wide conflict for the MCU, because that was an issue with some of these other Fantastic Four movies, especially Rise of the Silver Surfer. It didn't feel satisfying because they were trying to set up other things. I want this Fantastic Four movie to feel satisfying on its own. That doesn't mean that it has to come to a definitive end where we never see these characters again. Absolutely set them up to be in Avengers Doomsday, but don't sacrifice this family's story to set up something else. At the same time, it's absolutely no secret that Marvel has gone way down in quality, and a big reason for that is because of studio mandates from Disney. Bob Iger, Kevin Feige, they've admitted that there was a studio mandate after Avengers Endgame and after the pandemic to make an overabundance of content. This was true for both Lucasfilm and Marvel Studios and Pixar. Make the most content you can. It doesn't matter if it's good, just get something out on the Disney Plus platform and we'll go from there. Well, I think Marvel Studios has quickly realized that they need to pivot from the quantity over quality approach, because people are not going to keep showing up for these projects if there's not quality involved. With a movie franchise like the Fantastic Four that's been so impacted by the environment around it and the years that it was released, Can this Fantastic Four withstand that pressure to be something bigger, to be something more? This movie has a lot on its shoulders. It needs to set up Avengers Doomsday, like I said, but it also needs to be the first good Fantastic Four movie. And it just has to be a good Marvel movie in general to pretty much save the MCU and get audiences involved again with this franchise. So while I'm hoping that in an hour I'm going to be seeing the first good Fantastic Four movie, I'm having doubts that they're going to be able to withstand the pressure of everything around it and actually be something good in this movie right here, right now. But I'm about to see it, and whether or not I like it, I still have to continue and let you know. So, as Carrie Fisher once said, be afraid, but do it anyways. So I'm going to be afraid to go see this movie, but I'm going to see it and try to enjoy it for what it is.
Alright everyone, this is my grandma. I'm seeing the Fantastic Four movie with her. We're here now. Grandma, say hi to everybody.
Hi.
So I want to ask you, Marvel's first family, what do you know about them?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. But you've seen a lot of the Marvel movies, right?
Lots of them.
Yeah. We've been going pretty much every opening night for like the better part of a decade. So yeah, I'm excited for you to see this movie. What I want you to do is you're going to watch the movie, and then afterwards I'm going to ask you, do you understand what these characters are? You're going to tell me what you know about them, what happened in the movie, and then what you thought of the movie as well as a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan. Who is your favorite superhero? Not
Captain America.
Captain America?
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. That's a good answer. We're going to go see this movie, and then we'll update you guys afterward.
Okay, bye.
One of the best parts of being in Las Vegas is that everything is in a casino, including the movie theater.
How much did you win?
7 cents.
Just so happens that it's also the worst part about being in Vegas. Ouch. Okay. So here's the thing. I'm sorry, I can't stretch this out any longer. I fucking loved Fantastic Four: The First Steps. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I'm talking the writing, the acting, the visuals, every single thing felt intentional, like someone actually cared this time about not just making a great movie, but actually about these characters. Because that's the thing, the characters themselves for the first time in these movies feel like characters that I actually enjoy spending time with. I actually want to learn more and watch more about these Fantastic Four characters. I mean, starting off with Reed Richards, I think Pedro Pascal absolutely hit the nail on the head, at least from what I understand of Reed Richards, you know? We always see him depicted as the smartest man in the world, he's kind of untouchable, and this movie doesn't shy away from how brilliant he actually is, but they also humanize him a lot more, making him feel so much more relatable. This Reed Richards clearly struggles with anxiety. Just the way he thinks, he's clearly always thinking of the future, he's always thinking of the worst possibilities, and the greatest part is that's not just character traits of the character, that's something that actually got to be highlighted in this movie and brought to the forefront, which I thought was really good. Going into it, I was like, okay, Pedro Pascal is very different from these two actors who played Reed Richards in these other movies, so I wonder how he will actually do. And as you know from this video already, I'm not a Fantastic Four expert, I've only seen these movies, but so far, I think he's my favorite Reed Richards. And if he's not an accurate depiction of the character, well, God damn it, they did something that I actually enjoyed. So Reed Richards' wife, Sue Storm, got to actually be more than that. She wasn't just Reed Richards' love interest. She wasn't just Doctor Doom's love interest or a catalyst for conflict between the protagonist and antagonist. She actually got to be her own character. Vanessa Kirby did amazing as Sue Storm. I keep wanting to say fantastic all the time, but I can't keep saying fantastic. You gotta save that. But when I say she got to actually be her own character, obviously everything with Franklin and giving birth to a child and becoming a new mother, all of that actually got to be part of the story. But at the same time, they don't shy away from her struggles. They don't make childbirth look like an easy thing or parenting. They show that she actually struggled with these things. I mean, Sue Storm literally dies trying to save Franklin. That's something that does not happen in these other movies. And of course they brought her back, but usually in cases like that, it's for shock value. But in this case, it showed how incredibly powerful she was and how much she actually cared for not just Franklin, but the world that she was protecting. Her brother, Johnny Storm, was actually likable for once, and thank God he wasn't just an idiot. I actually liked spending time with this character. He still has those hot-headed traits. I mean, he's still cocky. He still likes women. I feel like they kind of shied away from the whole womanizer aspect and kind of opted into more just say that than show it. But also seeing him actually do calculations and trying to solve things made it feel so much more believable that he was actually a part of this team. Because in the other movies, he's just an absolute fuckhead. He's an idiot. So it's like, why is he a part of this team? It's almost like impossible for him to actually be there. In this one, he actually has a place. He actually has a purpose. And of course, we have my goat, the goat of all goats, Ben Grimm, the Thing. I really liked this version of the character. I think Ebon did really great. But the unfortunate part is that because of this entire story and how things went, with it being about Franklin and Reed and Sue becoming new parents and saving the world from Galactus, the Thing kind of took a back seat. That's not to say that he didn't have great moments, and it's not even a bad thing. I think what's going on here is that the most interesting things about the Thing happen at his origin story. And with this movie taking place 4 years after the Fantastic Four actually become the Fantastic Four, we kind of skip over all that. Him dealing with becoming the Thing, being a rock creature, going from a human to literally having rocks as skin. But it was kind of refreshing because in these other renditions, especially the 2005 and 2015 version, he's treated like an absolute freak, and it broke my heart. I'm still not over how his horrible wife treated him in that first movie. It was nice to have moments where he was like entertaining kids and lifting up cars for them, and a woman was actually interested in him and not somebody who was blind. I hope to see more from this version of the character, because if they continue on this path, I think he will be my favorite version of the character. However, as it stands, I think Michael Chiklis is my favorite version of Ben Grimm, aka the Thing. And the characters weren't just great as themselves. This entire family dynamic was brilliant in this movie. I feel like they finally got it right. Obviously, I've complained a ton about the conflict in the previous movies, feeling artificial, feeling dumb, feeling unrealistic for this universe. I mean, I still think Sue Storm getting upset over Reed Richards focusing on saving the world over their wedding is one of the dumbest things from the 2007 movie. The thing is that this movie doesn't shy away from what would you put first? What would you put before saving the world? Because obviously Galactus gives them an ultimatum. You could spare your world, but you have to give me your newborn son, your child. And obviously that was a central part of this story. So it can be done. You can grapple what's more important, family or saving the world, but you can do it in a realistic way, it turns out. They even show this in smaller ways that also feel more realistic, like Reed Richards focusing more on trying to find out if Franklin has powers and seeing inside the womb to prepare for the worst. And in doing so, forgetting to do things like building the crib and having Kirby do those things. Sue Storm calls him out for not being present for the actual father activities and being more worried about the superpower stuff. That is a much more believable and realistic thing for these two characters to grapple with and kind of conflict about, you know? And I feel like I finally understand Reed Richards and Sue Storm's thought processes and why they clash so much. I feel like I see what they were trying to do in the first movies now. As I said before, it's so clear that this Reed Richards struggles with anxiety, and with that, he's always thinking of the worst possible outcome and trying to prevent that. He literally says as much in the movie. He's thinking very logically, very consistently. So even though he obviously does not want to give up Franklin to Galactus, his mind has to go there. His mind prepares for what if I do have to give my child up to Galactus. The thing is that Sue Storm is kind of the opposite, where it's not like she doesn't look at logic. It's not like she can't be logical and consistent, but she obviously puts her heart first. She puts her love, her empathy first and foremost in all things. Sue isn't mad at Reed Richards for thinking logically about giving up Franklin to Galactus. She's more upset that his mind can even go there, that his mind is so calculated, that she's almost worried that her and her love with Reed Richards is almost like an equation for him that he needs to solve. And the greatest part is they don't frame it in a way where either character is necessarily wrong or right. All romantic relationships have have to have compromise at some point, and that's very much what these two characters do in this movie. Because it's not wrong to look at things logically and think ahead to prevent the worst possible outcome, but it's also not a bad thing to live in the moment and lead with your heart, lead with your empathy. There's a happy medium here, and that's exactly what they find in this movie. Because later on, when their plan that consists of not including Franklin fails, Sue Storm realizes that, okay, we do have to think logically now. Galactus is coming after Franklin. We have to use Franklin as bait. That's a logical moment she has within the movie. And on the flip side of things with Reed Richards, we know that he starts to become worried about what Franklin can become, especially after Galactus says that Franklin could pretty much be the heir to Galactus, this world destroyer. It terrifies him of what this kid could be, which he already had anxiety about before he even learned that information. But they both decide later on that they have to live in the moment. He could become something more, but right now, all we can do is live in the moment, be his parents, and try to make him the best child and person that he can be. I think Reed Richards also realizes that he cannot plan ahead for every single thing, because pretty much every plan that he has in this movie fails, and in the end, they have to improvise, and the improvisation is what eventually defeats Galactus. So they kind of frame it as there's benefits to both sides of the fence, and I feel like they finally showed that this family, when they work together despite their differences, are actually better as one, where I feel like the other movies just show so much conflict, so much conflict. They artificially put that in there, and then they don't do a very good job at resolving it besides having them all come together in a battle, that the aspect of them working together just, it's almost absent from those movies. It almost feels like they would be better apart. It almost feels like they would be better working separately as their own superheroes. All four of these characters also feel like they're actually a family. There's no, these two characters have a bigger relationship. I think the biggest example of that is Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm. They're actual like brothers in this movie. They still have the bickering moments where they're arguing and making fun of each other, but at the end of the day, they have each other's backs. There's moments within this film that they're like, "Aw, you guys have a little bromance. I love it." I honestly think part of that is just having these characters have scenes together to begin with. I mean, like the dinner scene, for example, when those two characters are alone while Sue Storm and Reed Richards are late to the family dinner, which they never are. It feels like they actually enjoy being around each other. It's not just because, oh, we're both friends of Reed Richards, oh, we're forced to be here. All of these characters feel like they actually choose to live with each other and work together as the Fantastic Four. And so that's the number one thing that I think they solved with this new Fantastic Four movie. Next biggest thing that I complained about was the stakes and how unrealistic they were in these other movies. Or not even just unrealistic, but setting up the stakes to be so high that the resolution ends up being absolutely abysmal, boring. It doesn't feel like it was actually a good way to defeat this giant threat. Everything just feels convenient. In this movie, that's absolutely not the case. The thing is, they actually make Galactus seem even more threatening than the 2007 version. I think part of that is because they actually have the technology now to actually show a big-ass giant creature like that and not have it cost $1 billion. I loved Galactus in this movie. He was a literal world-ending threat. And so that also meant that the solution to that problem had to be global. So when they have this moment of the entire world coming together to build these bridges and turn off their powers so that Reed Richards could transfer the world into another location that Galactus can't find, that felt like so much more of a realistic way to deal with that problem, that if that solution actually ended up working, I wouldn't have been mad. But the thing is, that solution did not work, because here comes Silver Surfer crashing through these bridges, blowing them up, and so that plan ultimately failed. They literally had the entire world on the same page, and that plan failed. That doesn't just up the stakes of what they're dealing with. That makes the resolution feel like it actually matches the stakes that they set up. Then comes in the whole plan where they have to use Franklin, which, again, another huge part, like they set that up so much where they do not want to involve Franklin whatsoever. They are absolutely opposed to that. Having Sue Storm literally decide, okay, yeah, we do have to use him as bait, that ups the stakes so much more, and also the resolution as well. Do you see where I'm getting at here? Not to mention that Sue Storm literally dies saving Franklin. Like, she literally sacrifices herself. That shows that the resolution was so much more important, and she didn't just die from being stabbed like the other movie and being stabbed from the villain that didn't even matter. No, in this movie, Sue Storm literally sacrifices herself for the issue, the thing that she's been fighting the entire time. Not to mention that they didn't actually even kill Galactus. It wasn't just a matter of Silver Surfer coming in and thinking really hard and getting all the power from his chest and then boom, just blowing him up conveniently. No, in order to defeat Galactus, or not even really defeat Galactus, but to save their world, they had to teleport him to another location where he was no longer their problem, but doing it this way where they're not actually killing him or ending the threat altogether after they set him up as like this super world ending threat. It makes it feel so much more realistic the way that it ended. And of course, that opens the door for more stories with Galactus and the Silver Surfer, but that's something we'll get more into in a bit. But before we do, I want to talk about probably my favorite part of this movie, and that's the fact that they actually embrace that the Fantastic Four come from goofy-ass comic book stories that are funny, goofy, cringy. I mean, they wear these ridiculous spandex suits, and they don't shy away from that in this movie. They have these ridiculous bright blue suits. They don't make the Thing this incredibly intimidating Hulk-like creature. He looks ridiculous. He's literally a rock man that has an eyebrow. But the thing is, they still take the movie seriously. These characters all act like this is all just normal. The only time this movie really feels ashamed of a comic book thing is the whole thing with the Thing, his whole catchphrase of "it's clobbering time." I didn't love that aspect because it did remind me of these movies where they were just making fun of, you know, their comic book origins and scared to be funny, scared to be ridiculous. You know, when Ben says that catchphrase isn't something he says, it's just from the cartoon version, it's like, I'm pretty sure that if I were to read the comics, that's not treated as like a joke. Then again, they did have a really cool moment with Johnny actually using that catchphrase as a way to rile him up and get a good hit on Galactus, so I can't be too mad at it, but at the same time, I would have liked to see him embrace that. But when the rest of the movie is willing to embrace the comic book features, can you really be mad at that? Not really. One of the scenes I complained about the most with the 2007 Fantastic Four movie was the scene where Johnny's explaining his encounter with the Silver Surfer, saying, "I encountered a silver guy on a surfboard." And Ben, Reed, and Stu are like, "Are you crazy? What do you mean? Yeah, you also must have saw a unicorn, right?" As if these characters literally aren't superheroes that transformed into these absolute abominations by going into space. They're confused by the Silver Surfer. There was a scene that was pretty much identical to that in this movie, but they actually did it correct. In this movie, they have Johnny Storm explain that he had an encounter with the Silver Surfer, but instead of not believing the fact that he saw the Silver Surfer, they don't believe the fact that he says that she was warm and kind, because the Silver Surfer comes in and explains, "I'm heralding your beginning, I'm heralding your end. Goodbye to everybody you love. Enjoy your last few hours. What do you mean she's warm and kind?" That makes sense to not trust Johnny Storm, and it even ties in to a core component of the character. They're like, well, you like space, you like hot woman, and here comes this silver naked woman from space, and Johnny Storm thinks he had a moment with her. That's literally pretty much word for word what Johnny Storm says in that scene. It works so much better. The whole dynamic of Johnny Storm to Silver Surfer to Galactus isn't that different from the 2007 film. The premise is pretty much the same. The Silver Surfer is from another planet that was going to be destroyed by Galactus, and in order to spare his or her world, they decide, okay, I'll serve Galactus, so I will destroy other worlds so that my world is saved. In the 2007 movie, what brings Silver Surfer back to reality is Sue Storm reminding him of his significant other from his world. But in this movie, it's actually the Silver Surfer seeing what she has caused. When Johnny Storm shows her messages from other worlds being destroyed that were similar to her own, it makes it feel so much more realistic. It makes that character feel so much more human, because it's not something selfish like, oh, I loved my significant other and you remind me of my significant other, because that almost ties into the same selfishness that made this character the Silver Surfer to begin with. This one actually is like, oh shit, I have fucked up. So when the Silver Surfer comes in and actually is the one that ultimately pushes Galactus into the bridge, ultimately saving the day, that feels so much more earned and exciting because it's like, oh my God, the Silver Surfer learned. And it's all thanks to Johnny Storm. Like I said, it's not very different from the 2007 movie, but there's just little things that make it feel so much more believable, so much more enjoyable, and just makes me appreciate that storyline so much more. Now, as for the whole corporate mandate and Marvel Cinematic Universe side of things, I think this movie does overcome those obstacles. For starters, this movie is completely separate from the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It takes place in its own world, its own universe that we have never seen before. So inherently, there's no connections to Iron Man. You don't have to go watch this Disney Plus show to understand this movie. And ironically enough, I think that that's what makes it one of the best MCU movies of all time. It stands on its own in a way that the movies did in phase 1 of the Infinity Saga before they all came together in the Avengers movie. This movie from start to finish stands on its own in a way that feels complete. That's not to say that they didn't set up things for the future. I mean, they ultimately didn't even defeat Galactus, which means that there's so much room for stories there, right? And we know from the end credit scene and obviously also news and the trades and announcements that the Fantastic Four are going to be in Avengers Doomsday. But they didn't sacrifice the ending of this movie to feel incomplete. Let's put it this way. If this version of the Fantastic Four is never continued, if they never have a sequel, if they never show up in an Avengers movie or any type of crossover, this will still feel complete as its own movie. I will still enjoy these characters on their own. Will I be sad that they won't return because I loved these characters so much? Of course, this movie makes you love those characters in that way, but it doesn't make you need more to understand them. It doesn't make you need more to feel like you got something from this movie. Everything you need is right here in this hour and 55 minutes. Another thing that I feel like really makes this movie feel different from other Marvel movies is that they really humanized this story. Of course, there's action sequences and those were all really cool to see, but a lot of this movie is these characters just talking, planning, solving equations, executing plans from their office. There's scenes of them being tired parents, of them cooking together. Even the fucking robot Herbie gets moments where he's humanized. There's a balance that makes it all work, and obviously with the conflict being about Franklin, it's so much more grounded in reality while also making it feel like a giant comic book level conflict and movie and story. Now, the final question. Does this movie act like a good introduction for the Fantastic Four? The answer is a bit complicated. After watching the movie, I asked my grandma, what is the Fantastic Four to you now? Do you understand these characters? Do you feel like you understand where they came from? And this was her answer.
So, Grandma, first I want to ask you, what did you think of the movie?
I loved it. I know there's a whole lot of things left open.
And did you feel invested enough in the four main characters to care about the story? Did you feel like it was a good introduction?
Actually, it did. And, the baby is the cherry on top.
Yeah, 100%. So what, in your mind, what is the Fantastic Four from what this movie described? What do you think their backstory is?
Well, I'm not sure what their backstory is, but I think their front story is we're going to move into the next, and is it the Avengers?
Yeah, the Avengers. Yeah. Okay. So then let me ask you, not knowing the backstory of the characters, did that hinder the movie for you at all, or were you just right on in?
It just went right in.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So then you didn't feel confused or anything like that?
Nope.
Awesome.
So as you can see, my grandma did not even know that the origin story was included. And I think a big reason for that is, as I mentioned, there was the whole ABC News thing. There was an ABC News special at the start that basically was a 4-year anniversary of the Fantastic Four, and that was how they explained the origin story. The thing is, it's a lot of voiceover, it's a lot of montages and clips all put together, and the movie kind of opens in a way that it's just like, boom, we started right away. So she did not pick up on the origin story in this movie. That being said, did that take away from her enjoyment of the movie? Not at all, because that's the thing. This movie is not framed around the origin story of these characters. It almost doesn't matter where these characters came from. As my grandma says, the introduction of Franklin is the cherry on top. It almost acts like an origin for these characters in itself. You don't really need to know much other than the fact that these are the main superheroes of this world. They're the ones that are going to protect against world-ending threats like Galactus. They're a family. They live together. They work together. And there's also now a baby in the fold. My grandma loved the movie no matter what, and it turns out her favorite character was Silver Surfer because she had the most to say about that character.
I figured out the girl was going to do something on the skateboard, but I didn't see what she did coming.
Right. Did you think that she was going to eventually help them and save the day, or did you think she was always going to help the villain?
No, I thought she was going to do something, but I didn't know because she encapsulated herself in with him wherever he's at.
Right.
And I wanted to see her add to the 4.
Right. Okay.
So to answer the question that has pretty much become the main point of this video, have they made the first good Fantastic Four movie? I would say they did. And I wouldn't say it was just good. I would say it's fantastic.
Say that again?